Wait. Team. Do we have? Oh, okay, good. Everything is working. Sometimes everything is not working, and you guys have been there for that too. What's up, everyone? It is episode 4 of the Neutral. We are halfway to the same numbers of episodes we had in season 1. I don't know how that's happening. My guest this week, he's a handsome man. We've seen him on Cheddar Esports. We've seen him do his own content. You guys may be familiar with his voice because he's done Smash commentary. That's right, I have Zane Bhansali with me this week. So let's get to that 2-player screen. Oh, hey!
Hey, what's up?
It's a Zane.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. So, I'm going to start with the same way that I start with everybody else, which is, what is an epengu?
So epengu is actually a shortened form of elemental penguin, which if I don't actually have the stream open right now, but I could open it and post something in there. If you ever see elemental penguin lurking in Twitch chat, that is me. And elemental penguin came from, Adventure Quest?
No, but I'll pretend that I do.
Perfect. Good job. Adventure Quest was a browser game, just like fantasy browser game, RPG, generic anime sword boy type thing, that I started playing with friends at camp, and all of my friends had tags like Aqua Wolf or like Silent Hawk or something. It was always just adjective plus animal or like something. So I was really into penguins. I was very into as many 12, 11, I don't know how old I was, year-olds are into the idea of all the elements coming together. So elemental penguin, I signed up for a Pokemon forum, first of many. Shout outs to the Pokemon forums, wouldn't be where I am without the Pokemon forums. I took the sprite of Empoleon, I dropped it into iPhoto, I shifted the temperature and used like the vivid filter. So it was all green and red and yellow, and made that my avatar. And yeah, that's where Elemental Penguin came from. There were others before that, but Elemental Penguin was the one that stuck. All in the same format of adjective
plus animal.
But Elemental Penguin stuck, and then it got shortened to epengu, not because I was like, wow, Elemental Penguin sounds really stupid, but just because Elemental Penguin is, I think 13 characters or more, maybe 14. It's way more than that. It's like 15 characters, 16. Either way, it's one over what the character limit was for certain other dumb MMOs that you could play. And so I had to shorten it because Elemental Penguin wasn't quite to my liking. So, yeah.
So now you're epengu.
Yeah, epengu. I try not to say the E hard because it makes it... I really hate my tag.
So right now, should we like workshop a new tag?
Oh, I'm down. I've been waiting for this for years. I was really close to just using Zane as my tag because it's a great name. I love my name, but there happens to be another.
There happens to be a pretty more well-known Zane in the Smash world.
Yes, the most recent winner of the last major of Genesis.
I hear he's actually good at Smash.
Whoa! Hey, whoa! What's that supposed to mean?
Well, one of you has won a major.
It
has been PG ranked. And one of you has not.
Yeah, but I was the undisputed champion of Cheddar Esports. No one could even take a stock off of me.
So what you're saying is that just like we need to have the battles of the James Chens, because there's James Chen Obscurica and Jay Chenzor James Chen, are you saying that we should have like all Smash battle between you and Zane?
Okay, he would wash me, but we could have.
But you like do multiple smashes, right? There has to be at least one that you can beat him in, like maybe Project M or like I don't know.
Project M is too similar. Project M is too similar to Melee, and I think he's actually played more Ultimate than I have because he played it for a bit when it came out on stream, like every other Smash streamer did. I actually have no idea who he plays. He actually didn't play that much Ultimate, but he probably played a little bit. So I don't know about Smash, but we could do a multi-game thing. Zane was actually part of a Pokemon Smash Bros. Invitational a few weeks ago that Wolf Glick, one of the Pokemon World Champions, put together, where it was a bunch of Smash players who'd played VGC, Pokemon VGC, and Pokemon's my other big love, and I'm pretty good at Pokemon. VGC, okay, I'm pretty good at singles, but Zane actually got second in that tournament before falling to Ludwig, of all people, in the finals. So I think maybe we could do like a Smash and Pokemon Gauntlet type thing, and maybe maybe for the battle of the true Zane.
Okay. I'm gonna reach out to Zane. It'll be the first neutral
Oh God.
invitational battle of the
I mean,
Zanes.
I have nothing to lose, right? I don't use my fucking name anyways when we're when I'm on stream or anything. Although do have a really bad habit now when I'm getting on commentary. I go, I'm a Pengu, or you can call me Zane, because I just have so much shame about my tag. I really do not like it.
Well, I mean, so it's really funny because I'm the opposite. So I love my tag. For those of you who know, because you've been to the YouTube channel and you've been here on Twitch, my tag is Sage Gnosis. I love it. Froskurin hates it. So do a lot of other people, because apparently they don't know how to pronounce Gnosis. Like, they see it and they don't. Yeah. So, like, there was a point in my career where I was, like, talking to Frosk about, like, how can I have better reach as a content creator, and she was like, fucking drop Gnosis, or just change your handle completely. And the problem is there's a ton of Sages on Twitter, and I think there's like a few Sages in esports, and so I was like, can I keep Gnosis? And she was like, no, that's the problem. She's like, so people refer to you as either Sage, I don't know how to say the last part, or they just say Sage, or Amanda. No one ever says your full handle. So I was like, all right, I guess professionally, I'll just be Amanda Stevens.
Wait, so I've never asked you about your tag before. Is Gnosis, is that like related to like Gnostic, like prediction type thing?
No, that would be way cooler, and it's like more on brand now for like what I do for Cheddar and other like web shows.
Sure, yeah.
But it's actually, I'm being interviewed on my own show. This is great. So Gnosis means knowledge, right, in Greek.
Right, yeah.
And one of the first representations of trans people that I saw in media was seeing Hedwig and the Angry Inch. One of the characters in that movie now play is Tommy Gnosis.
Right,
and I was like, oh, Gnosis, Greek word for knowledge. That's really cool.
That's cool.
And Gnosis specifically is like knowledge for like theological things.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go to school for theology originally. So Sage is a wise person of like mysticism.
Of theology.
And Gnosis is Gnostic, more knowledge geared towards religion. Boom. Handle. Easy.
That's perfect. I like it. I think it comes across a little bit like, I don't know, because I know the word Gnostic, which means like a seer, someone who predicts something and stuff. And so I don't know Greek roots too well, but I was, I could glean from that it had something to do with knowledge, some sort of learning, something like that. So I've always gotten it, but I do. Frosk has a good point. She has a sick tag too, by the way.
Yeah. So she was like, you just gotta fucking get rid of it. And I was like, really, really upset because like all of my stuff is Sage Gnosis, and I was like, God, what if I just change my Twitter and I just don't use it professionally? She's like, that's fine too. I'm like, all right, cool. So that's how I changed. So I reluctantly changed, whereas like you're like, no, get rid of it. Like I want.
You see, you're one of those people now who I think of as, it's actually interesting because you liked your tag, but you have abdicated it far more than I have.
Yeah.
Because when I show up on stuff, it's usually still as epengu, not as Zane Bhansali. My YouTube channel says Zane Bhansali in the header, but the custom URL is /epengu. Whereas I think most people who know you think of you as Amanda Stevens. And then
so it's really funny.
Like a deprecated part.
Yeah, so everyone at least knows my handle because like it's my custom URL for YouTube and it's my Instagram. And if you play like League with me. But what's super funny is that when I pop into Twitch chats, no one knows who I am. Even people who know me, unless they're people who have known me for a while. Because I've dropped Sage Gnosis, I think, since like late 2016, early 2017. So like pre-blow up, like more people knowing who I am. So it's really funny to me that like I'll pop into somebody's Twitch chat and I'll be like, "Hey, person," and they're just like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's Amanda Stevens," and they're like, "Oh, you have a gamer tag," and I'm like,
"It's the
like
same
everyone
thing
else."
With me. Same thing with me, but it's so frustrating with me too, because since my tag that I'm known for is just an abbreviation of my Twitch handle, like I'm always not entirely sure whether they don't know who I am because it says Elemental Penguin and most people know me as epengu or as Zane, or if they just don't care. They might actually have figured it out and they're just like, whatever.
Whatever, it's that Zane guy, he comes to events and like sometimes commentates, like whatever.
Like I saw the Crimson Blur, who is a Smash commentator, whose stream I've been watching every single night recently because he's actually very close to breaking the Slay the Spire world record for most consecutive runs on A20. He's
Okay.
tied with the world record right now, and he's going to go for the 8th one tonight. So I've been watching his stream like every night for the past few weeks. And I talked a lot in his stream, a lot of people talk in his stream. And so when I went and I saw him at Genesis, he and I know who each other are. And I was like, yo, Blur, I love your Slay the Spire streams. I don't know if you know, but Elemental Penguin is me. And he's like, oh yeah, no, I know that's you. And I'm like, so then you just didn't acknowledge it? No shade. But I was like, okay, I see how it is. I got you.
That's wild. So
no, but Blur and I are friends. It was funny.
all right, so like everyone knows that you do Smash content.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm gonna assume that you were like a Smash 64 kid.
No, Melee. I mean,
was your
Melee and
first?
64 were only 2 years apart, so I think it's pretty rare that there were people who were 64 kids, to be honest.
Really?
I think if you take a vast majority of people, of millennials at least, not Zoomers, they would say Melee was their first game over 64, because Melee was so much more popular than 64, and the GameCube was so much more popular at that, because I've written a lot of stuff on the history of Smash Bros. Before, and 64 came out near the end of the N64's lifetime as a console, and it was like this crazy project that people didn't think was going to work, and it was super uber successful in Japan, but it wasn't as successful overseas at first. Of course, a lot of people still had it and played it and stuff, but then Melee was like it's the best-selling GameCube game of all time. It's something like over 50% of people who owned a GameCube own Melee, and it wasn't even ever packaged with the GameCube. So, so I was a Melee kid. I started playing Melee like way back when it came out. Actually, a little after that, maybe in 2003, I started playing Melee, and I started watching Smash and like following the competitive scene in 2008, 2009, and I taught myself how to play. But I was a kid, and my parents wouldn't let me go out to tournaments and stuff. So I didn't go to my first tournament until 2013, despite having followed the scene for a good 5 years before that.
Wait, does that mean... Wait, was your first tournament at Apex?
No, Apex was 2015. My first tournaments were LANhammer 2013, which was a NorCal regional, and MLG Anaheim, which is a legendary tournament, horribly run. A ton of the VODs were lost forever because MLG screwed it up so bad. They had to redo the brackets on day one because their bracketing software went down. The tournament ran 8 hours behind on day one, and then they DQ'd people from round two. So like they were in top 128 or top 64 for being 15 minutes late on day two when they had run 6 hours late on day one. It was one of the wackest tournaments of all time, but was such incredible gameplay. MLG Anaheim is a trip. And I went for the first 2 days as a competitor, and I had to go. So I went and watched the rest of it at home. So I got the perfect experience.
So I know that you're a New Yorker now. Have you always been a New Yorker?
No, I was born in New York, and I
Okay.
lived in New York till I was 5. And so I visited New York a lot as a kid. But my family all lives in in California. We moved to SoCal. My parents split up. My mom and I moved to NorCal. And then I was between NorCal and SoCal for most of my childhood. NorCal is like my Smash region at heart in a lot of ways. I'm very much like split between NorCal and New York right now as a Smash regional alliance type thing. Yeah,
You're like D1.
Sorta. Yeah. In a different, but at the
And
opposite
like
of him.
reverse order, right? Because like
Yeah,
D1's New York and now...
New York's always his home, but you always see him out there for SoCal because that's where he's lived for so long. And it's like, Smash Summit is happening right now, and the two top picks were a young NorCal come up player, Spark, and a young New York come up player, Ryobeat. And I was advocating for Ryobeat because I love Spark. We've talked a bunch. I've interviewed him before. He's a sweet guy. He's an amazing player. He's better than Ryobeat, my friend Nico, to be honest. But Ryobeat's my boy. So, like Spark was more of a new come up person. And I haven't lived in NorCal proper for 5 or 6 years now. So it's a twisted thing.
Okay. So, I assume, like most FGC people, because Smash is part of the FGC, if you guys don't believe me, get over it already, is that so we all start as competitors at some point, right?
Yeah.
Nobody plays a video game and is like, you know what I should do? cover it.
Yeah.
That's like rarely anyone's first instinct. The love is in the competition.
Mm-hmm.
So the follow up to that then is, when did you go, all right, like, I'm okay at this competitive side of this thing, but I could probably, do a little bit better maybe as a commentator or as a content creator? Like, when was that sort of quasi switch happening?
Like 2015, I think. So I was in college at the time. I was really lucky that I joined HTC Esports as like their first employee part-time, and then switching to full-time when I was on breaks and stuff in my junior year of college. And so that sort of introduced me to the idea of making content in esports in the first place, and gave me a lot of privilege with which I could act, and that I had resources available to me that I could make stuff. But it was a little before that, even, because it was when I was in college, I ran the school's Smash Bros. Club, and I also was very into League of Legends, as I still am, but like even more into it then. And people would tell me when we were watching games that I should commentate them. It was mostly for League, actually, and that was out of the fact that I just knew every character and knew every ability, and like the names of every ability in League, and like all that sort of stuff, and specific item points and stuff, which, just stuff that back in those days, not all casters did know that sort of stuff, even for a League.
Yeah.
So I liked knowing that sort of stuff.
Back in
but people told me I should commentate. They told me I should commentate Melee too. And it's funny because I'm not great at either game. Like, I'm okay at Melee in the grand scheme of things. I'm pretty bad compared to other people. In League, I'm like plat. So again, I'm like okay, but I'm in the grand scheme of things, I'm pretty bad compared to other people. So,
I will say that, like, in fairness, plat in League is like what, the top 10 percentile, top 5 percentile?
Right,
so, like,
yeah.
You're not like what most people who think of like a good League player is, right? Because like you're not Challenger or Master or Grandmaster
yeah.
or even Diamond. But like in the overall skill level of the average League player, you're like better than like 70% of the populace. So
yeah, it's actually funny
pretty
because
okay.
It's actually funny because I think actually I may be better in terms of overall percentage of the populace now at League than I am at Melee, which I hate.
So what I should start telling all of your Smash friends is that you're actually a League player who moonlights as a Smasher, right?
I guess I haven't even finished my placements this season. They are not going well. Also, my placements are dire right now. But yeah, I mean, Smash is weird because people have more dedication to getting better because it's an FGC. I mean, I think this is just FGC stuff versus League of Legends in general. Not every person who plays ranked is inherently really focused on getting better as a player in League of Legends and improving. And everyone who plays any FGC game, by virtue of the fact that you have to go to tournaments to play it most of the time in any sort of competitive setting, because playing friendlies with your friends or casuals or whatever, it gets old. And also, like, it's not, you can try to make it serious practice, but it's not really a lot of the time, so I think it's different in that, like, if you don't keep up your skills in a fighting game, and in Melee especially, which is so execution heavy, then you just get passed by immediately.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's also, and I mean, this kind of came up in one of the older episodes, but like the big difference between like League and Smash, or League and FGC in general, is one's a team game and one's not.
Yeah.
So like I can be 0-5 on Trundle Top, right, in like one of my silver ranked games, and like still do something meaningful and like get the W.
Yeah.
You can't.
Well, that's because you're playing Trundle, though.
Huh?
That's because you're playing Trundle, though.
Hold on. We'll get back to that. I heard that, Shade. But, like, the difference is that, like, you can lose your 1v1 matchup and still add some type of resource to your team. Shot calling, vision control, objective, macro. There's so many more things than just the 1v1 aspect of a multiplayer game. More so in, like, the MOBAs than, like, FPS games, right? Like, if you're dead weight in, like, CSGO, you're dead weight and your team is probably going to drop you.
Yeah, that's true, too.
But in a fighting game, you are only dead weight to yourself. Yeah. So if you suck at the 1v1, You just suck at the game.
You just suck. You're just bad. Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And so, like, I think the big thing about fighting games for a lot of people is that, like, when you lose, you can barely blame anything else but yourself. You might say, like,
Yeah.
lag or, I mashed it. But, like, at the end of the day, it's you. There were other things that you could have done to lead up to that situation before you needed to mash harder or lag or whatever. Whereas, like, in League, you can trick yourself into being like, well, my laning phase is ass, but I'm a god at this, that, whatever. So I think that's one of the reasons, right? Is that, like, you can stay bad skill-wise in League and still convince yourself you're good,
Yeah.
but you can't be bad at a fighting game and tell yourself you're good.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that contributes to the fact that the fighting game has, like, the fighting game community has more of an emphasis on mindset in terms of being a top player. I think that, like, obviously we emphasize it a lot, but it also is, I think, more important to refine as a top player. And I mean, I think Melee has produced probably, like, maybe one of the greatest competitors in video games ever from a mindset perspective, which is Armada, because that guy just does not crack, or didn't when he played. It's like him and Faker,
Yeah.
They're like the modern examples, without going back to StarCraft, which I actually don't know too much about. Like, him and Faker in my mind are the two epitomes of, like, the perfect mindset in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that statement. I don't think that that's, like, an arguable statement.
Yeah.
But, so, because we do want to make this slightly about you, but we were having kind of a conversation, before the show, and since you brought up pro players, I think it's something that fits in both of our wheelhouses. This sort of, like, weird mentality that pro players have about being interviewed. And, you are also a very talented interviewer. So you've probably experienced this situation too, of you're like, oh man, this guy won. He'd be a great interview. And since you've also been involved in other games, I don't know how much content you've done in them, you're used to, oh, well, like, if Faker wins Worlds, at minimum, I'm at least going to be involved in a press conference with him. But, like, Armada could win Genesis. I mean, Armada's probably a bad example, because Armada's down to talk all the time.
Yeah, sort of.
For the most part.
Yeah.
But we'll just use Armada anyway. Armada could win Big House and be like, all right, fam, it's cool that you want to interview me, but, I want to go get, Five Guys, so I'm out.
I have an after party to get to.
Yeah,
like, that's a
right?
lot of it.
And so when people wonder about, like, how content works in these mediums, they're always confused why, sometimes you leave an event and there's no content about top players.
Yeah, it's for FGC stuff, there's so many shifting dynamics, because it all comes out of the fact that obviously FGC events are just all access, right? And so there you can talk to anyone, you can talk to pros, to top players, and you see people do that all the time. And so an interesting side effect of that is that, like, you can become friends with top players pretty easily. And obviously there's the people who, like, seek that out and go for that if that's what you want, but it can also just happen organically. And it does happen organically. If you keep showing up to tournaments, you just will become friends with these players because you know them, especially, like, in region, you become friends with the top players in your region. So it's a weird double-edged sword, because on the one hand, what that means is that I have a roster of people who I can go to for an interview, and I know they will never turn me down. Like Hugs, Hacks Money, a bunch of people like that, SFAT, Pew Pew You. Like, I can hit them up, and if they have downtime, like if they are not actively doing something else, they'll pretty much always say yes to an interview. But it also means there's no buffer system, because there's no actually streamlined, maintained outlet for journalists, an avenue for them to talk to players. And so what that means is that I could very easily, I'm backstage at every tournament because I have a press pass. I shoot backstage. Sometimes I'm doing content for the tournament. So I could very easily pull a player aside after they win or before they're about to play and go, hey, do you want to do an interview? Like, I can do that in a way that I cannot do it at an LCS game or something, right?
Yeah.
But when I do it, I have to think, like, what's Plup gonna remember about me asking this, like right when he's about to play? Because it's reasonable that he would expect to not have to do an interview and talk to some fucker because he's not used to it, you know? At this point, it is totally reasonable. So you have to think, because it not only affects my relationship to these people who I might be acquaintances with, right, if not friends, but also affects any future interview opportunities in a way that it doesn't with other games. So when I do get the courage up even to ask someone for a post-match interview and they say yes, it's great. Like the other Zane, he also will do an interview with me any single time. And like Chudat, my favorite interview that I've ever done actually is I interviewed Chudat at Shine 2018. I interviewed Chudat before he played Leffen, because there was a lot of hype going into it. And Chudat beat Leffen. And then because of UCF, which is a mod that, for those who don't know Smash, that people use in Melee to make it more consistent, to make the controllers more fair and stuff, UCF was not turned on in the match. So Leffen and Chudat had to replay a portion of the match. And then Leffen beat Chudat. And then I interviewed Chudat again right after he lost, and I just uploaded both the interviews. I was just like, this is really funny that I have the before and the after of him replaying. Yeah, so I got 2 post-match interviews with him. I was like, wow, okay.
So I mean, I definitely agree with a lot of what you're saying, you know, especially now that I do way more FGC stuff than I do League or Overwatch. But on the flip side, you know, some of these people are pros. Now, of course, in both scenes, there are unsponsored players or people that are sponsored, you know, by like the smaller orgs. You know, maybe they cover some of the travel and that's it. They don't pay salaries. But, you know, let's talk about like one of my favorite people to talk about in the FGC. Let's talk about Punk, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I haven't told this story publicly, but I think I've subtweeted about it, which is that Punk won final round at Evo at a final round 2019.
Yeah.
And I had told my outlet ahead of time, like, hey, do you want final round content? And they said, yes, we want this winner, that winner, and then like if you pick some people that were at least like top blank last year on the tour, you can go ahead and do that. And then they found out that the Tekken World Tour didn't start at final round, so they're like, we don't want any Tekken, we just want Street Fighter interviews. But we 100% need the winner. And I was like, all right, cool. So I go up to Punk, I tell him like, hey man, congrats on winning. You know, could I get an interview? My outlet really needs it. And he was just like, nah man, you know, I don't really feel like doing one right now. And I was like, hey man, like it'd be really good press, like you're on a new team. He's like, yeah, I just don't want to. And walked away.
Yeah.
And you would never have that happen in another esport.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't. It's crazy
you could
because
ask
sponsored,
enough
right?
questions. Yeah, you could ask enough questions during a press conference to like have a faker interview, right? Like you do like 3 questions, write a feature, use the questions answers to like inform your feature, call it a day, right?
Especially
so
if it's
you get a press conference.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what Fionn does all the time in League, is he uses the press conference to ask relevant questions he needs for a feature, and then uses that, which is makes sense.
But while I am talking about Punk, this is not a Punk problem. This is sort of an FGC problem of these players. They don't stream. They don't always stream. They don't make YouTube content. They don't do interviews. And then 7 months down the line, they get released from a team, and everyone goes, how could Reciprocity ever let Punk go?
Yeah.
Guy was second at Capcom Cup. They're out of their minds. And it's like, I don't know, maybe it's because they like don't promote the org at all? Like, maybe it's because they're just like not doing media stuff that like makes the sponsors happy, you know, gets the brand out there.
Yeah, it's
and I'm sure you have that problem
though.
in Smash too, right? Of like there are probably some players that when they get let go of an org, everyone's like, how could this org ever let blank go? And you're like, well, what does he do? And they're like, he's one of the best smashers in the world. And he's like, and?
Yeah. It's definitely a problem that you face. And I mean, something that I had to deal with was that when I first started doing interviews in Smash, I was working for HTC Esports, and at the time, HTC sponsored Liquid, TSM, and Cloud9. So I could get a Leffen interview because I could go directly through the org and be like, "Hey, we want an interview with Leffen, and we sponsor you. So, give us an interview." And Leffen and I are on good terms.
Leffen's a good
talked
dude
before. Like we know each other. But when I've asked him before for an interview, like well ahead of time, I was like, "Hey, any chance you want to do an interview at this tournament?" And he just goes, "No, no, thanks." And while while it is sad to be turned down by that, like that, I think it also makes sense. And again, it's a complex issue because first of all, Leffen does a ton of content, so TSM is never going to care about him not doing enough content. Yeah.
That's why I think people like Leffen, people like Rob TV, right? Like those type of players. Even if they don't do interviews, you see them enough, right?
Yeah. But even past that, I mean, it is a legitimate, true factor, as weird as it is, that Leffen doing an interview with me could make him less likely to win the tournament, even if it only takes him 30 minutes. I mean, like I said, mindset is so important, and if people feel like they're thrown off, they can be thrown off just because of the placebo effect. So in something like League, these players all have to do interviews, and even though a lot of them hate it, I don't think any of them feel like, if I do this, it will be a disadvantage to me that the other players don't have, because everyone does interviews. It's just expected of you.
Yeah.
So another downside of the open bracket part of the FGC is that when you do an interview, you are one of the only people doing an interview, since it's just not widespread, right? Mm-hmm. So you are someone who has actively chosen to dedicate your time to something that will not improve your tournament performance when other people are doing other things. In League of Legends, CSGO, any other esport, just because they have the infrastructure, when you do an interview, you're not thinking, oh, this, I mean, I don't know, maybe the players are thinking, oh, this will hurt me, but they're also thinking, all of my peers, all of my competitors are doing this too. So it's not like I am sabotaging myself. As weird and as irrational as that does sound.
So like, I agree with you, surprisingly, probably because of how I started this stance. So, like, for example, Itazan, most of the Japanese players in general, they will say to you, yes, but I want to focus on the tournament.
Yeah.
And so Itazan will never do an interview as long as he's alive, which sucks because Itazan usually makes like top 4, top 8, so maybe you just never do it. But what about the times where people win? Then what's because I know that you were joking, before the show, and I think maybe even said it during the show of like, well, I got to hit up the after party. But like, with the exception of that, like, what's the professional excuse for not doing it when you've just won a 1,400 person tournament, a 2,500 person tournament? What's the excuse to not do it?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, honestly, a lot of the thing with me has just been like, I haven't asked as much as I should have when people win. I've definitely asked before and gotten turned down. But I was also saying when we were talking earlier, I'm really happy to see Jacob Wolf and Tish from ESPN showing up at tournaments all the time, because this is the sort of thing that can actually change the game, where I bet if I had asked a year ago when Leffen or someone won a tournament, hey, you want to do an interview? He would say, nah, dude, I want to celebrate. Like, I want to chill. You can hit me up later or something, like, if you really want to, but not right now. But Jacob has ESPN clout. And so now when Jacob shows up, they will do it with him. And that's not meant to be a slight against Jacob at all, because what it means is that now they're used to doing post-match interviews. So now they will do it. Actually, for Genesis, for the past 2 years at Genesis, did a thing where I would interview the Melee top 8 qualifiers as they qualified, and then edit together videos overnight of like promo reels, hype reels, which was exhausting. And the players would be understandably sort of upset, because to make these hype reels good, you need at least 15 minutes with every player, to actually get
B-roll and stuff.
Yeah, well, and not just B-roll. I mean, like, I was, you're interviewing them before the bracket's even set, so you need to ask them about multiple people who they might face and that sort of stuff. And you need like a B story too, so it can't just be all the same, like, I will fuck this person up. Like, you want it to be more than that. But what that meant was that there would be a backlog, right? And so players would be waiting for a pretty long time after qualifying when what they want to do is they want to go home and sleep, especially because this is not after they've won. It's pre-top eight, end of Saturday. They're going to get rested for top eights on Sunday. And they were like, they would be like, oh, this is weird. Like, why am I doing this? This year, when I interviewed the players, a lot of whom were the same people who I interviewed last year, I made it go a lot quicker, first of all. But also, they just knew they knew it was expected. They knew it was coming. They were totally down to do it. They were a bit more media ready, maybe down to give funny answers or down to give just the canned filler answer, because there's different ways of being media ready. Mm-hmm. And that was cool to see. It was cool to see, and I think that that'll slowly keep happening. And I think that we actually that problem is one that I think, thankfully, because it's been so frustrating for both of us, is getting addressed. And Jacob and other people's presence is actually really actively making it more expected by players.
I mean, you're definitely right. And I didn't bring this up to be like, oh man, we're going to solve it. It's not like the previous episodes of the Neutral recently, folks, where like me and the person on the episode, we're here to solve a problem. It's not like me and Joe Monday fixing moderation online, or me and Alex Lee talking about like how do we get more money into Smash and the FGC. There's no actual solution to this outside of like somehow getting TOs involved. And I don't see that as like a reasonable solution across the board. I think for certain events like Evo, my first Evo was 2016. There was no press room. You got a press badge, and it was basically like any other FGC event. You run around, you do the hard work, and you hope things work out by the end of the weekend. Now there's a press tent inside the venue. There's press passes for Sunday, and then starting in 2018, they were bringing the top 8 downstairs so that you could interview them. So, like, it's getting progressively better, but that's because, like, wasn't just ESPN. All of us were like, hey, you're the biggest event of the year. You guys got to act like it.
I think another big part of it is that not only events, but FGC organizations or FGC wings of organizations. Basically, what I'm saying is that as much as journalists and PR people love to pretend they have an antagonistic relationship with each other, the PR person link doesn't exist for the FGC right now.
Yeah, which for is a lot of orgs.
Which is so like if I were able to talk to Panda, to the Panda PR person and be like, hey, I want to interview Plup, like at this event. Can you help set that up? I think it would go a lot smoother. And then Plup, because it's coming from his team, would be, and also Plup's a sweetie. I mentioned him a few times, and like I've interviewed him and it went great, and he was really accommodating about it. But oh
yeah, just like I felt bad for using Armada for an example. I've never had a bad experience with Armada, so sorry, friend.
But the PR linkage doesn't exist in the FGC as much as it does in other areas of esports. When I came to work for Cheddar, and now that the story mob is more of an established thing, and they're so awesome, so kick-ass, doing such a great job, it was so mind-boggling to me to be able to have PR linkage to go to pro players and get them interviews. Like the whole experience I had covering the NALCS finals in Detroit, it was sort of just surreal. It was like, Caitlin, who is the PR person for the LCS, and
oh right, Nicola, because you were doing FGC and then you did Big Boy Esports.
Yeah, exactly. So Caitlin and Nicola like took me over, and we went to the press conference, and then after the press conference, they were like, "Here's Jensen for an interview." And I was like, "Oh, cool, dope." And Jensen was just like, "Yeah, cool." And then we talked to him, and it was like, that was really easy. That was super, super chill.
Now imagine my experience coming from the other direction.
Yeah,
like you're doing regular esports where like you talk to a PR person, someone gets brought over to you, and you're like, easy. And then I go to Evo and I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, I have to like hope that these people answer their DMs. Now I will say for Panda specifically, they have like a pretty good press guy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And like he handles everything pretty on point. And also a lot of their players have gotten actual media training.
Yes.
So like they're pretty good about, they see the word interview in the DM and they immediately like they know what to say. And they like they're about it. UIU is also really great. Equinox is really great. But I do know what you mean, where like some of these orgs, they have a PR person or they have a team manager, but it's more about getting the players to the event, getting them to the hotel, and making sure they show up for their pools. And that's like the bare minimum of their job.
Yeah, I just picked up Panda because they're the first name that came to mind.
Yeah, no.
A testament to how great they are.
I just want people who listen to be to know when they're like, because a lot of people who come to me, and maybe for you in your field, they're like, oh, how do I do my first interview, or how do I get a hold of blank org, or what orgs are harder to deal with? I don't want anyone to be like, Zane and Amanda said Panda.
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, but it's interesting because I said earlier that, there's not that buffer, not that thorough way where journalists and pro players can have a more structured method of communication in the FGC. And I think that it needs to be there, but it's also like what's cool right now about the FGC is when people do ask me that question of how do I do my first interview, I say, you go ask a player, like just ask a player. And then if they say no, ask someone else. And if they say no, ask someone else. And if you've gone through 3 and people haven't said yes, like you're just really unlucky. That someone's going to say yes, which is so dope about the FGC. That even if I had not been the HTC guy, like I would have been able to do my interviews and get them started. I definitely would have. I wouldn't have had my first batch of interviews include HBox and Mango and Leffen all together, but I probably could have gotten like one of those people. So yeah, I think that there's arguments to be made both ways which is just it all doubles back to how esports should the FGC go, which is with Smash an even weirder question, honestly, because Nintendo just doesn't support.
Yeah, so Smash that's the thing that came up to me a lot when I was dabbling in more Smash stuff this year at EVO, because I'm usually not a Smash person. I didn't grow up with Smash, never played Smash. I was a warm body to unlock characters in Brawl in college. Sure. They're like, we need someone to hold the controller and lose. And I'm like, I can do that. Because, it's vengeance for all the time I kicked their ass in Tekken and Soul Calibur, so it made sense. Right. But, a lot of times everyone's like, it's really hard for us to think about a Smash esport because, other games, their publisher is super involved in some shape or form, and they have a pro tour or at least an invitational. Nintendo, births our games and then goes out to buy milk and never comes home.
Yeah, I think I literally used the absent father
I think metaphor. It was Nakat. I think Nakat said it in our interview of
okay.
Nintendo's the absentee dad for us, where he goes out, bought a pack of smokes and never came home.
Yeah. I used it in a false swipe script earlier this year too. There's a reason why people go to it so quickly.
So I get that you guys don't live the traditional esports dream, because
no.
I think Smashers are more aware of this than the rest of the FGC. So I think Smashers are actually really good about diversifying their portload, right? They know that they can't survive just on being a professional Smasher. They need to be a YouTuber, a Twitch streamer. They have to, look for their own sponsors. They have to, be active on Twitter, because they know that the only people who are going to support them are their fans.
Yeah.
Whereas some of these...
Better than the FGC, at least.
Yeah,
I still have gripes about how good Smashers are, but they are better than other FGC games.
Yeah, whereas in the rest of the FGC, because there's still the, win do well in the Pro Tour, get picked up, or, get picked up because you're okay, and hopefully you'll get better on the Pro Tour. They still have that avenue that they're like, well, why the fuck do I have to stream? Why the fuck do I have to YouTube? Why do I have to, use my Twitter as a celebrity or as a professional? Mm-hmm. Because... We've kind of got, the golden ticket, and you guys are the ones just eating the regular candy bars.
It's pretty ridiculous to me sometimes, because it was not long ago that FGC dev support for games other than Smash was about as absent as Smash. It's still fairly recent where it's been able
Blame
to
Street Fighter 4 though.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
Street Fighter 4 was a game changer for the FGC,
100%.
And then, like, you know, Capcom was really smart about it. They're like, hey, there's this esports thing. We've got this absurdly popular game. Hey, Twitch, Sony, you want to support a Pro Tour? And Twitch and Sony went, no brainer, like, most selling FGC title of all time.
Yep.
Not like, there's probably some numbers somewhere where I can find out, like, what sold more SF4 or Melee, but still, like, one of the top selling fighting games of all time. Of course we want to support a Pro Tour. Like, this is free advertising. And then every other FG title went, Tekken World Tour, you know, NRS Worlds. Like, everybody else was like, oh shit, like, no one's gonna play our games competitively if we don't, like, try to match. And Nintendo went, oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, so there's so many things that brings up, because so what I was saying earlier, in the fact of, like, I remember when the developers for other fighting games were just as negligent as Nintendo, but not as actively harmful as Nintendo, but still not, like, putting money into the scene. So when people complain about Capcom these days, I get it, because I remember when that was what everyone was doing. Everyone was complaining about Capcom a while ago, not that long ago. But then I'm also like, but you guys do have Capcom Cup. Like, you do have Capcom Cup. And that people should continue to complain about Capcom and complain about whatever developer you want, because they actually listen.
Yeah.
To when other fighting games complain, which is crazy. So or at least a little bit. So I'm not saying don't complain.
Do you wish that Dad came home? Do you wish that Dad finally came home with the bag of milk?
I mean, Dad sort of did come home, but he just sits in the study and watches his shows and glares at us whenever we make too much noise. You know, that's sort of what happened, right? Nintendo sponsors every event now, but the capacity and how much they actually sponsor and how much it's just saying, okay, we won't sue you for using our IP, is something that is cloaked in mystery. I think Hugs actually is going to release an expose, as he's calling it, about how Nintendo's involvement actually plays out and how they have shut down stuff in the past. So we got the worst version of Dad coming home, right? Absolutely. Like,
Dad came home and you found out that you have a stepmom and now mom's not here.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Basically.
And I mean, a lot of the stuff that I think Hugs is going to be talking about is that other people have wanted to make Smash big, and then it hasn't happened because of Nintendo. And I'm not going to get into specifics on that, but there have been situations where that's happened. Not multiple situations.
So is Nintendo the way that everybody thinks Dragon Ball is? Because, like, remember there was that, like, period of time where, like, everyone's like, something's wrong, like, Dragon Ball's gonna crash and burn because, oh no, 4 events got canceled, and everybody involved in Dragon Ball was like...
Because they thought Toei was shutting it down.
And it turned out that some of it was, like, miscommunication, some of it was, like, last-minute submitting of IP forms. Like, there was a myriad of each reason why a Dragon Ball event had gotten canceled turned out to be a different reason. It was not, oh man, Big Daddy Toei's telling us no. Yeah. It sounded like you're saying that Nintendo is the actual Toei.
I mean, all I'll say is that EVO 2013, Nintendo tried to ban EVO from streaming Melee the day of the event. I don't really need to say anything more than that, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Like, you can sort of get how it is from that. And it's interesting to me because Melee would easily be the tier 1 FGC game if Nintendo didn't shut it down. You know, like, FGC games have looked to have the same consistent viewership as other esports for a long time, and they have been growing, and I'm so happy that Tekken blew up, that we are released from just placing all of our hopes on Street Fighter every year.
I would say nowadays Tekken doesn't have the mainstream recognition that Street Fighter will always have, because, you know, one of those had a cartoon show, and one of them didn't. Right? Yeah. And one of them had a live action movie that was better than the Tekken one. But Tekken, as far as, like, esports is concerned, I think everyone knows that Tekken is, like, the superior looking excitement, you know,
playing. Yeah, I think it's actually in some ways a good thing that Street Fighter V was so disappointing to a lot of people. Like, obviously you wish for the better game, but And I think that the FGC's relationship to esports would have shifted anyways. But it really was like, how big is Street Fighter going to get in the past? That's what it was. You didn't worry about Mortal Kombat. You didn't worry about any anime fighters or anything. It was, how good is Street Fighter going to get? And so now that Street Fighter is so clearly not the poster child for the FGC anymore, people can not only put their hopes on different games, but also have more of an understanding to the larger esports community that all the different FGC games are pretty different. So it is a community, obviously, but in terms of how they work for broadcast and stuff, it's different. But my point that I want to go back to is, if Nintendo didn't shut down Smash would be a tier 1 esport. Because you can't just think of how Smash's viewership is better than every other fighting game, which it is. Like if you look at the adjusted numbers,
yeah,
you also need to look at the fact that that is without any dev support. So it should be boosted so much higher. The fact that it went even with CDL on CDL opening weekend for Genesis, like CDL has literal hundreds of millions of dollars poured into making it a success. Genesis is 3 dudes who met in the Bay Area who I'm like talking to on Discord all the time and just do this shit. You know?
I mean, in fairness, there has been some talks about what would have happened for opening weekend for CDL if the day before it was announced it was on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point too.
So like, I don't want to. I do agree with a lot of what you're saying. So I'm not trying to like discredit. I think CDL is a somewhat unfair comparison because, like, I know that there were a ton of people that did not know it was on YouTube.
Yeah, because it was mismanaged. The money that
they were like,
into it.
They announced like what 2 days before. Oh, we're a YouTube exclusive, and if you didn't catch that tweet or any of the news about it, you'd be on Twitch going, "Where's the event?"
Yeah, and yeah, but I mean, there's other comparisons to make too. I mean, Smash has outperformed traditional fighting games at Evo.
Yeah, so like, no, I definitely agree. I think that you're right. Yeah. That if
no, you're right. The CDL, I just like to rag on CDL because it's such a mess.
It is a mess.
So it's easy target. But I mean, Smash just absolutely would be like so big if Nintendo supported it. You have to ask yourself, when ESPN broadcasted a Smash or a fighting game for the first time at Evo, what game was it? It was Smash 4, a game that everyone ended up, that is basically the Street Fighter 5 of Smash.
In fairness, though, Smash 4 was earlier in the tournament that day.
Yeah, but that was part of the schedule. I mean, that was part of the scheduling all put together. I don't think that ESPN decided afterwards, we're going to do Smash 4 because it's earlier. They probably, when the Evo staff was putting together the schedule, decided to put it there as part of the ESPN deal.
But I mean, I'm going to say that up until recently, Street Fighter has always ended Evo. So I don't think that there was ever a world back then in 2016 that Smash, of all games, knowing Mr. Joey Wizard, would have ever been the last game on Sunday. So when you say, it was the first game, I understand what you're saying. Like, oh, well, they chose to air Smash, period, is the better statement, right?
Yeah, no, I wasn't saying it from an FGC's perspective. I was saying, I'm guessing ESPN knew what game they wanted to broadcast. I'm guessing they...
obviously they didn't do Tekken and they didn't do, BlazBlue. But I also think there's, like, a lot of reasons behind that. Smash is super friendly for kids, which is why they did it on Disney XD as well.
Yeah. No, but I see what you're saying. Yeah, Smash happened before because just in the scheduling, Smash happened before Street Fighter. But the fact that it was Smash back then... like that was one of the games that was broadcast. Like,
I think that's definitely a big point. So getting back to you in the sense that we're gonna wrap up in like the next 10-15 minutes. You're no longer at Cheddar, and there are a lot of people no longer at Cheddar. We don't need to talk about that.
Nope.
But what are you doing now? Like, we saw you pop up and do some stuff at Genesis. What is Zane? What is epengu doing these days? What is the future of the elemental penguin?
So Zane's future is that he's waiting to hear back from grad schools, and I freaked out earlier today because Columbia sent me an email that said the Columbia graduates, and then my heart skipped a beat, and then it was them like, congratulating former graduates on their accomplishments this year, which is great. But like,
wow, that's like a super big cock tease.
Yeah, so that was a lot. So I'm waiting to hear back from grad schools. But either way, whether I hear back from grad schools or not, I'm freelancing. I'm going back to the freelance life. I'm working for False Swipe Gaming, which is an excellent YouTube channel if you have any interest in Pokemon or Smash on the competitive level.
What is that? What is that URL? Is it just falseswipe.com?
No, it's a YouTube channel.
So is it youtube.com/falseswipe?
I don't know what our custom URL is actually, but if you search, I don't run the channel.
Twitch chat. Just type in false swipe into YouTube, you'll find it.
Yeah, False Swipe Gaming. But we do histories of competitive Pokemon, histories of Smash. We did one recently that was actually a crossover for the aforementioned invitational I brought up, where it was the competitive Smashers Guide to Pokemon.
I saw that.
Or the Smasher's Guide to Competitive Pokemon, actually, which was really fun to make. It's like one of our lowest performing videos ever, but because it's such a niche topic, but it was really fun. So, and I know actually that it drove a lot of traffic to the tournament, because that was the point of it, was that it would be in collaboration, and I know that it did that, so I'm happy with that. But I'm gonna be, I still write for them on Pokemon stuff. I write the Smash stuff when the Smash stuff comes out, but I also am really interested in starting to do more stuff with them. I think that competitive Pokemon is a whole nother esport with a weird visibility problem. Try to figure out the linkage between Pokemon and Smash. It's not that hard.
Is it? Well, in fairness, though, Pokemon has had a Capcom Cup for like a minute.
It has. That's true.
And granted, it's had its problems over the years.
Yeah.
But at least it's there.
And they're getting way better with it. All credit to DC. All credit to DC, a former Smash commentator, still a Smash commentator actually, but who is one of the event planners for the Pokemon company now, and I think has been a huge part of building Pokemon into more of a robust competitive scene. But I think still Pokemon has an even weirder visibility problem for reasons that I do not need to get into. So I want to do player features on that. I want to start doing these sort of player features, these mini documentaries on these scenes, not the scenes that already get the attention. I don't need to do the story of Zaiwu like the score does, but I think that there are ways that I can help out the communities that I'm in, the Smash community and the Pokemon community most notably, by being the person who starts to make that content.
So similar to like what I'm doing with the neutral here, because granted I do have, like, you're not a no-name, but like, you're not the same. Like, the start of the neutral is very different than the way the neutral functions now. The start of neutral, I was like, Shine, JB, Logan Sama. And then it was like, No Good Citizen, Right Well Always, Daniel Rosen. Like, there's like, someone actually commented on it on Twitter. He was like, hey man, he's like, your viewership has really dropped off. I could give you some marketing tips. And I was like, there is no marketing in the world that's gonna bring the show back to the point it was. Like,
yep.
Because it's a complete direction shift. Like, it's not
right. Exactly, and it's a conscious one, and that's what I want to do. I think, like, it's crazy that Pokemon is the biggest media franchise in the entire world. And no one. Have you played Pokemon ever? Do you play Pokemon?
Yes, and I also have played both the card game and VGA competitively.
Great, VGC, but yeah, VGC. Okay, great. So who won the most recent Pokemon regional, biggest in-person Pokemon competition of all time?
I couldn't tell you. In fairness, though, you know who also has that same problem? Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, it does.
Interesting. Interesting how game companies that are owned by bigger companies are really bad at promoting their pro scene that they say feeds the game company. But hey, what do we know?
You couldn't even tell me what the signature Pokemon used was. And the guy used a fucking Charizard with Blast Burn. A uniquely terrible move most of the time. Not uniquely, there's other moves like it, but a pretty terrible move. Aaron Trailer is his name. So, I just messaged Aaron and I was like, I want to do a video that is like how Blast Burn Charizard won the biggest tournament ever, the story of Aaron Trailer, and talk about, he's been playing since 2011. This guy is experienced. He's one of the most most seasoned competitive Pokemon players in the scene. And then even past that, I mean, you have this weird thing with competitive Pokemon singles where there's no official support of it whatsoever. So it's all exists on YouTube, and the YouTube creators have taken it upon themselves to create the scene. But then you get like the goats of competitive Pokemon singles are like literally the guy who took over writing False Swipe Gaming Pokemon videos when I started having other stuff to do, who does the singles stuff. He's the greatest singles player of all time. His name is BKC. He's amazing. No one knows, like everyone on Smogon knows him. No one else knows him. That's crazy. People should know who that person is. So so I want to do stuff like that with False Swipe. I want to highlight more Pokemon. I want to highlight more Smash and try to help these scenes grow, try to be a part of that force that makes these players used to doing these things and then maybe makes them do some creative content of their own. And just keep on doing interviews and keep on writing. I had an article in the Washington Post this week about Meister, Smash Ultimate player. So yeah, that's, I just want to keep doing journalism and growing as a journalist and moving into other stuff. I'd gladly do more LCS stuff. I've always loved doing LCS journalism, and I should probably email Caitlin or Nicola sometime soon to like see if I can go do some coverage. But also I just want to really be part of the media attention, because if I'm doing it and can get views with the very limited following that I have, then I'm sure the big media companies will rip me off.
It's a little rough.
Hey, I'm a known entity. I'm not so small fry.
Yeah. So chat, I'm going to open it to you guys, but we're going to get to a Twitter question first, because for like the first time in a very long time, we have a Twitter question, which is, aside from grinding away with your own character, what would you say is your fave source of outside inspiration for a Melee player's gameplay? I've heard some people cite playing every character, other Smash games, other fighting games, reading certain books, etc. I.e., I had no idea air dodge throws were a thing before the recent Break the Target's news. HBox says he picked up Sing, F Smash on the ledge from Ultimate, and Axe practiced Roy versus Ness in one Summit.
Yeah. So that last, this is a topic I like to talk about a lot, actually, about how you get better at Smash by doing other things. And that Axe practice Roy versus Ness thing is actually from an interview I did with him after he won Summit, and I asked him just like, how'd you do it? And he was like, I just played Melee. I played weird Melee. I just like focused on my love for the game. I played Roy versus Ness, two very bad characters. And and it paid off. But my favorite ones are definitely when people talk about playing games outside of Smash entirely. Mango talks all the time about how playing Counter-Strike makes him better at Smash. And it's not even just from like, oh, my Twitch reactions get faster or whatever, It's like, it just gives you a different neural pathway to think about the game, and it gives you a way to surprise yourself with thinking about the game, right? You end up thinking about it because Melee is your life when playing another video game, inevitably, but you're thinking about it in a new way. There's this Peach player in New Jersey named Wally, who's a friend of mine, who is super on the come up. Like, he's going to be like, Wally's going to be top 100 next year, no matter what. If he keeps playing, I'm 100% sure he might be top 50. He's so good. Wally was, incidentally enough, a really good competitive Pokemon player in singles back in the day. And I talked to Wally a lot about how his play reminds me of competitive Pokemon in some ways. And he agrees with me when I bring it up, and was like, oh, that's interesting that you even mentioned that, because that is how I think about how I'm playing. And it's weird that you can see my mental go, like what I'm thinking going through it. I'm like, I just sort of guessed based on knowing who you are as a Pokemon player. So I think that my favorite stuff is when people talk about playing other games and then how that ends up helping them out in Smash, because it can be really interesting. I'm personally telling myself, like, start thinking of Smash as Pokemon. I think it'll be very helpful for me if I do that. because Drugged Fox Sammy, one of the legends of the game at Genesis, we were on a commentary block together, and he said people think of Melee as more stressful than it is when you're in the moment and you just need to slow down and think. And Pokemon is obviously no mechanics, purely decision making. And I was like, okay, maybe if I just start like using the mentality I have when I feel like I'm playing good in Pokemon, because I'm purely focusing on what my opponent is doing and outplaying them in that regard, it'll help me out.
So funny story. The first time I ever heard, one of my first interviews was with F Champ.
Sure.
At 2017 Evo, and I was like, "Hey, what do you do?" You know, my whole thing was like the real life of a pro gamer for the FGC. So a lot of my questions were like, you know, how do you prep for travel? You know, trying to dispel this myth that pro gamers just play in the FGC just play video games all day, because I knew that wasn't true, but that's what like the online warriors think. They're like, oh man, the reason pros are good is because they don't have a job, so they sit and they play 18 hours a day, which is obviously not true. And he goes, right. So I wake up, I eat breakfast, and the very first thing I do is play StarCraft. He's a big StarCraft 2 player. And I said, oh, wow. Like, why StarCraft 2? And he's like, exactly what you said about the Pokemon. It opens up his brain to think on a different axes.
Yeah.
So he does that, plays a couple of matches, you know, wires his brain for that, and then he dives into matches because now his brain isn't focused on Street Fighter V or Marvel, because I think, this was a Marvel interview at the time. He's like, now my brain is thinking about StarCraft, and so maybe I'll see something differently. I'll see a different combo, or I'll respond differently, because I'm not thinking as a Marvel player, I'm thinking as a StarCraft player.
Yeah. I think, and it can be other things other than video games too. I mean, everyone in the Smash community knows this, but the cliche book to read if you want to get better as a Smash player is The Inner Game of Tennis.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. I've heard that from a lot of pro gamers, actually.
Yeah, and it's a really good book. But also, just when I was playing tennis, because I played tennis all through high school and then as a hobby in college, and when I was playing it actively in college, it definitely changed the way that I thought about Smash too. It doesn't necessarily always make you better, but it makes you think differently. And I think that's pretty important for any person who plays an FGC game where so much of it is about finding new ways to grind and innovate, even though a lot of it may have even though you may have limited actual physical options within the game. So I think that other competition of any sort, of any type of video game, of sports, of anything, is just always my favorite way to think about Melee.
So, anecdote, since you shared one of yours, do you know how I got better at League?
No, tell me.
Soccer. So I played soccer for all of my life, elementary school all the way through college. And granted, like, one of the first things that made me better at League was my friend saying, aim to die no more than 5 times a game.
Yeah.
And that instantly, like, I skyrocketed in improvement and started winning way more games. But I started looking at the mini map the way I looked at the field as a fullback. So I was a fullback. And,
well, that's important.
And I would call out things to I remembered that, like, in high school, especially because that was, like, the highest level we were playing. Like, we were playing at the state level at my school. Was I'd be like, you know, ship it, hit it to the wing, you know, drop it back. I was always calling things out, and that's because as a fullback, you see more of the field than your forwards and your midfielders do.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wait, I'll just play, like, so I'm a screen lock person, and the specific reason for that is that it forces me to pay more attention to the mini-map.
Huh.
And so I'm more aware of map movement, and I'm able to correctly, like, predict what's going on, because I'm not so busy clicking on the screen. Like, there are some people who can do both, right? They can click on the screen, watch the mini-map like gods, especially pro players. But for me, it made me way more aware of macro. Because I started thinking about it, like, I played soccer at a really high level. Let's see if there's something I can apply. And I was like, well, I was a fullback, and I was the sweeper. So I have, next to the goalie, I have the most field of vision of what's going on the pitch at the time.
That's cool. Yeah, I played midfield in soccer. I played soccer throughout all of high school, but then one season they played me as stopper, which, is like,
Yeah.
yeah, basically designated as doing that. And so I can definitely see how that would apply. Actually, Reckless was an incredibly talented soccer player, and then he had an injury, and that's why he started playing video games. But he was like almost on the national team.
Yeah. Reckless
U17
is
or
a dream interview, even though he never does them,
right.
because he has the same. I tore my ACL in high school, which is why I couldn't play for a school team.
Sure.
And he had like I'd known the Reckless story like as soon as I got into League, because everyone was like, "Oh, you'll like this Reckless guy. Did you know that like he hurt himself and he was a national level soccer player?" And I went, "All right, let's see this Reckless dude."
Yeah.
So like those are my favorite stories. Like no Kami made top 8 of the first for Dragon Ball for the first year at Evo.
Yeah.
He was on a football scholarship
at
his university. And I believe he tore his ACL.
That's so interesting.
And not like he could never play again, but while he was injured, he was playing a lot of MKX because that's what all of his friends were playing as like a hangout game. And because he was also doing MMA at the time, while he was healing, he said to himself, because he was thinking about NFL, or doing MMA. Those are like the two directions he was thinking about going into, even though he was in school. He was like, do I want to hurt people for a living? And he said he did, and he had that epiphany. He's like, do I really want to hurt people for a living? And so he dropped off the football team, stopped doing MMA, and picked up Guilty.
That's
and
cool.
That's how he became a professional fighting game player. It's the same thing for Kizzy K. Kizzy K tore his rotator cuff in high school, and nobody knew why he was in pain. And it's in the last episode of The Neutral, folks. So if you guys have been watching all the episodes, you know this story. Zane probably doesn't. And so he was in so much pain that he was like, I was in so much pain and nobody knew what was wrong with me. Why would I want to commit to something where that could happen?
Right.
And so, because he's a big dude, he could have done really well in high school, gone to a D2 school of his size, right? And played football. But he said, this is too painful. And, when you're on a team, sometimes you're replaceable. So would I want to commit to that? There's actually a lot of people in esports who have the Reckless story, but they're not as big as Reckless, so it doesn't come out as often.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I think actually it's so common. Who was it? There was like a Fortnite player when they made those.
I'm so bad at Fortnite information.
When they made those videos, one of the Fortnite players, I think it was Dubs. Yeah, Dubs, because he got injured in like a motorcycle incident or something. And Benji Fishy was like a pro bowler, and then he couldn't bowl anymore, and then he played Fortnite because of that. Like he was a really, really good like teenage bowler. I find those stories so fascinating in anything. One of my favorite things that I've ever written was this profile on Hungrybox about who he is as a person and how he navigates his sort of heel role in the Smash community and the weird relationship he has to it. But the way that I started out that piece was with talking about this tennis player, Gaël Monfils, who is my favorite tennis player other than Federer by far, because Monfils is on the court. He plays like a moron in a lot of ways. I mean, he's incredible, but what he's known for is sliding across the court when he does not need to, and taking incredibly flashy plays when he does not need to, and just being incredibly athletic, but to the point where it's like he could do this without doing the things that he does. He's the highest he's ever been is like 11th in the world or something. Maybe he might have cracked top 10 actually at some point. But and he's just like, he's super funny. He's super charismatic. Black French dude. He dances on the court when there's matches and like match pauses and stuff. And I've always just loved Monfils. And what I learned is that Monfils was an Olympic level track runner in high school, and he was supposed to go to the Olympics. Like he was a shoo-in basically. He was like top 3 in the nation for under 15 track. and he just didn't do it. He started playing tennis. It was no injury or anything. He just started playing tennis and he liked it instead. And so that's a little bit of a different story, but there's something about people who can compete in multiple different things at the high level. It is always so fascinating to me. And that one where it's a willful change and then you can see that he plays tennis for the joy of it, makes me so happy. I love Guy Monfils so much.
I mean, I love those stories in general because, there's this sort of misconception. I mean, it's fading, right? Because esports players are getting more fit because, physical health improves mental stability, which allows you to play better. But, whenever people are making these arguments that like, there's no way, I don't understand how competitive gaming is a thing, or I don't understand how you can call these people athletes, or, these guys, they just play video games and they're okay at it. You can't be top percentile at anything and not have been competitive in something before you got into it.
Yeah, I think that's
and what I mean by that is that there are too many interviews that I've done because, as most of you know, I don't like talking about the game. The game is super boring to me. If you want that type of content, I know that there are other people you can get it from or you can watch their stream. I want to talk to the person. And there has been, I would say, 10% of all of the people I've ever interviewed, which is probably around 100, have not played or competed at something at a high level before they became who they are. Shine was a semi-professional Gears player. JB was a semi-professional Magic player. Nokami was playing, was on a football scholarship.
Yep.
Kizzy K was playing for his high school team. There's Reckless was a national level soccer player. None of these guys at this extremely high level of their games were just lazy dudes that sat and played video games all day and like got noticed, right? That's not how this works. So I agree with you, and some of them have willingly made the change, right? Like when it comes from like game to game, there are a lot of people that just they want to play a different game.
Gamsu.
But even like I said, like with like Shine, he was like on a pretty serious Gears team, as he was telling me on the neutral, and he fell in love with Street Fighter 4. And so he was cheating on practice to play Street Fighter 4. Right? Like you don't just get good by just being in front of the computer, being in front of the controller, right?
Right.
Greatness comes from somewhere else.
Yep.
Ooh, that could be the tagline for this episode.
Ooh, greatness comes from somewhere else. I like that.
Zane Bhansali. Ah, this is a good one. We did it, folks. I don't have to think for like an hour for the tagline. This is great. Zane, we're over time. Where can people find you on the internet? It'll also be in the show notes, but where can people find you if they want to keep following you?
At epengu, EPENGU on Twitter, youtube.com/epengu. That's it. All my writing goes up on my Twitter. All my videos go up on my YouTube.
And as y'all know, you're already here, so you know how to find me. Zane, thanks for being here. Until next time, go beyond, plus ultra, and peace.